Welcome back to System Prompt. This is episode number 9. Episode number 9. Can you believe that? Episode number 9, man.
You got to find another way to start the show, man. We gotta. You do it every episode.
I'm hyped. We made it 9 episodes.
No, it's
I
cool.
didn't think we were gonna make it past 2 or 3. I'm hyped, man. I can't believe we did it, but we got another banger today, Peter. AI and business. Are they using the right tools to solve the problems? Or do they even know that there is an option to leverage AI to build solutions to solve everyday problems that small and medium-sized businesses are facing every single day? A lot of people are just content with kind of going through the motions when in the age of AI, there are actually solutions to automate these flows, make the lives of their teams and employees easier, and most importantly, save that money. My name is Val.
And I'm Peter.
And we're back with System Prompt. What are your thoughts, Peter? AI and business.
Well, right? What are some of the problems? Businesses are reaching for AI, as you said, for fixes where solutions already exist. And at a much cheaper cost than exists. Or they're trying to fit it into a broken process. And, we've talked about this before, and you can't fix a broken process by introducing AI to it. Just amplifies the broken process and makes you can see how broken it is because the AI will continue running it faster than any human being can. And one of the things that we wanted to open with specifically, right, is inventory management. How does it is absolutely right? Absolutely. Like, can you use things like OCR and AI vision pipelines to get warehouse shelves and extract inventory properly? What do you think?
I think it really all depends on the scenario. We're in the age now where somebody needs to kind of talk through these businesses to really understand their problem. And in some cases, for sure, you should. And in other cases, you're doing too much. And I think it's on a case-by-case basis. But there are solutions where you can leverage AI to do that. But it really all depends on the problem. And I think the first thing a business owner needs to ask is this something that could be enhanced with some sort of automation? What is the reason why we can't automate that now? What are the real problems that either myself as maybe the business owner or the employee, what am I facing? What is the frustrating parts of my job? And, how much time is it taking? And when you start to ask these questions and really get a good understanding of the problem, then I think you can make the determination of whether you should try to use something that is heavily leveraging AI or, use some of the really great technology that's already out in the marketplace that could do it already. And you just never really thought about it because you just kind of got in the rut of doing whatever process works. But either way, there is a solution that businesses should consider because it can make a simple automation can really change not only the workflow around, but it could change the morale of the team around when they don't have to drag through some of these things that they don't really like to do. What are your thoughts?
I mean, nobody really likes to sit there and count inventory, right? Manual inventory is tedious, right? Nobody likes sitting there counting. We know that AI can read images, and from what we've seen, especially, there's a slew of different sort of inventory management programs that AI can do and vision models can do. And the demos look absolutely clean, right? And it looks like it's an absolute great fit, right? It's something that you could potentially fit into, something you could just take pictures, it'll log what's there. But when I put my systems hat on, I start thinking about different ways that it can actually fail, right? You have spatial ambiguity. The model can't reliably separate overlapping or stacked items. That's a big one, isn't it? How do you engineer that? Double counting across multi-pass scans with no deduplication, right? Is that being thought of in this process, right? It needs a structured photo protocol just to function, right? One item per frame, consistent lighting, or it might think it's a completely counting another product altogether, right? And one of my biggest problems with just using AI for this specifically is that it's a probabilistic output for a problem that needs a deterministic answer. Um, so, what's the actual problem here? So when I hear it, and I have gotten sent actually in previous jobs to go evaluate people's inventory problems, and what was the actual problem, right? AI wasn't solving this issue for this company. The issue was that they didn't have a process. And just introducing AI to it wasn't going to fix their non-process. That's not something that was going to do it, right? Uh, if you're if you're a company and you're ordering things and you're selling things, right? You know what you ordered, right? So you have a count at least to start with, right? You know what you sold, right? The math is subtraction. Are we really going to sit here and say that we're using large language models to do basic arithmetic? Because that's what we're doing, right? Uh, and if you don't know what you have, that's still not something the AI can help with. That's a books problem. And a vision model is not going to fix that. Well, what does fix it? What do we have out there that fix it? Point of sale systems fixes this, doesn't it?
You mean point of sale systems that count the inventory manually, or point of sale systems that
Well, you know what you ordered, right? So if I ordered 100 computers and I have 100 computers sitting in a warehouse, that point of sale systems is going to know, because it has inventory tracking, I have 100 computers. Now, when I sell a computer, you scan it, you send it. Now it knows I have 99 computers left. I sold one. It has inventory tracking built in, right?
now what about people who need to track inventory where it's not so easy because it's not like the, the product that's being sold is scanned and manually counted. Let's say, at a bar where you want to make sure that you know how many bottles of liquor are left, because you're not selling the liquor by the bottle, you're selling portions of that bottle, and you want to get a good idea before you order the next batch how much is left. How would a point of sale system help in that scenario?
Well, point of sale systems helps in that scenario because you know how many ounces are in a bottle. And when you're a bartender, I've worked as a bartender for years. You're giving measured shots to people. So if you're giving measured shots to people, those measured shots amount to a bottle at some point, right? Your point of sale system should be able to track that. But again, this is also a numbers problem. Do you want a probabilistic AI working with something you need determinism for, right? And there is a way that we can fit AI into this. I just don't know that counting is what we want it to do, right? I don't know that counting is specifically the thing that we wanted to do here. Look, point of sale systems are cheap. They're not expensive. When I looked this up just to have this conversation to make sure, SkyTab, free hardware, $30 a month, tab management, inventory tracking built in. Square, hardware from $200 to $400, software $60 a month. How much does it cost to get a developer for an OCR vision pipeline?
Well, that's if the only option is OCR. Is there any other possible way that AI could be leveraged for a small business that wants to reduce the amount of time that the team is taking to square up inventory? And a bar is just one example, but there's a lot of if we're talking about a small business that can't leverage technology, we're in the age now where it's possible to incorporate technology in ways that they never imagined. Because although, yeah, you're 100% correct, but the the question I have is, what about those businesses that don't have it set up? There's a lot of small businesses where the processes in the back end are pretty messy.
Yeah.
And they don't consider AI because that's not their strong suit. Their strong suit is they're really good at running their business. They're an expert. They are a guru at their space. But when it comes time to stepping outside of their space, there's still a reason why 25% of small businesses don't have a website. Now, some of them don't need it, but others are saying, "Hey, I don't know," and that's just for something as basic as a website. How do we close that gap when we're saying, hey, things are moving fast? The old ways worked for a very long time, which is why they're still in business. Oftentimes, why people love their product. But is there a fresh new way to go and approach an old problem where some sort of AI process can be used to help to streamline, even if it's a half an hour, 15 minutes, or more a day, but over the course of a month or a year can have real value?
Here's where, so let's give this inventory, right? Let's stick on this inventory topic just for a second. And like we okay, so we know how much a developer costs, right? And developing a vision model requires training, a lot of iteration. You're doing this iteratively over and over again until it can actually spot what it is you need it to spot specifically. Where do I think AI can fit? AI helps with the analytics. AI helps with the demand forecasting, reorder timing, lead times, right? How long does it generally take for this to come in after I place the order? So it knows, and it can alert me when inventory reaches a certain point, right? It can alert me and say, it's time for you to order this. This is going to take 2 months for it to come in anyway. And that is going to help a business owner leaps and bounds, right? But I've also worked in a bar. Like I said, I've worked as a bartender. You have to do reconciliation month by month because that sucks, right? That's the manual part of it. But it requires precision there, right? You need precision there. I just struggle with needing to be so precise, and when you're reconciling at least month over month, to use something like a large language model and a vision model together, where there's so much that needs to be engineered there to remove any sort of ambiguity, that the cost for it goes up exponentially as well, right? Because the harder the pipeline is, the more money it's going to cost to put together. This is just right. Yeah,
Well, I think you're touching to a great point because there's not a one size fits all, and
yeah.
we're in the space today where AI could provide a more of a white glove treatment for solutions to specific businesses. This is really where the role of a forward deployed engineer kind of comes into play, where somebody comes in, it's a fancy way of saying a consultant, but that does a little bit more. Where they come in and they really try to understand the problem that a business owner has. If they can't, because oftentimes business owners understand the problem, but how do you bridge the gap between the very specific problem that they have and a tangible solution? Where maybe for some, and this is what I was starting off with, where it depends on the problem, it depends on the business, it depends on the use case, because the cool part about AI is that it doesn't have to be a one size fits all solution. If somebody has a very specific problem and you could go in there and really understand it, you can come up with a way to save them a couple minutes. And if that pipeline is built out properly, the value should exceed the cost. And the truth is, the value should always exceed the cost for a solution for a business. Because there's some times where an existing solution makes a lot more sense. But there's other times where, okay, it doesn't fit on the OCR side, but it does fit on the analytics side. It does fit on the order prediction side for whatever that is. Okay, we can go and train on past data and get a better idea on how we can order in the future with insights that may have been missed in our manual process, if there was really any a process at all. Maybe you could even evaluate the process and say, hey, where do we have holes in our game? And this is where a lot of business owners um, can think outside the box in terms of solutions. And inventory management is probably just, now I'm thinking about it, it's probably just one of the many areas we should cover, because the goal is to get the wheels turning and saying,
Yeah.
hey, this process worked for a long time, but things are moving fast. And business owners feel it because it feels like every day. I mean, not only just business owners, I think everybody's feeling it. Every day something's happening, things are moving. Where do I fit in? And there is a way. And it goes beyond just using a regular chatbot to ask questions. There's ways that you could pull this into your process to get real value, without having to over engineer. And I think the point you're talking about is over engineering, where you have to be afraid, you have to be wary of that. It's a nice shiny solution, but it doesn't provide the value compared to the cost.
You hit the nail on the head when you have to be introspective and you have to look at your process to see exactly what you're doing and where you can actually prop up that process, change the process, look at a process, change it, make it better, make it more efficient, make it more manageable for you to operate, right? Now, what is the problem for that? What is the problem for an engineer going into that kind of situation is you need to build trust, because no business owner, whatever business it is going to sit there and listen to you criticize the way they've done business. And they're not going to listen to you try to turn it into a process problem. They're going to go, well, I've worked this way for years, that I've done this. So it's first and foremost, it's trust building. And I think that being able to explain to them that there's a cheaper option for them, they should go this route here, right? So in the inventory example, we'd be going to point of sales, right? Making sure that somebody is doing the initial count, because that's really all you should need for the initial count. But then there's a process in which to keep inventory. So you're not doing inventory day to day. Do you have to reconcile once a month? I can't remove that need, right? Everybody needs to do that. That's the human element that has to get done. But I think that the thing that's the most important is the trust that needs to get built there. And I think being honest, and I think building that trust is the most important thing. Because especially as a small mid-market business, how many salespeople do you have to go through a day is absolutely insane. They're getting cold called, they're getting cold emailed, they're getting cold text messages now. And right.
Yeah. I mean, a good forward deployed engineer, and we're using that fancy term for saying somebody that could come in there and help your problems, has to lead with empathy.
Yeah.
Because there is a problem present, and that problem is, hey, this section of my business is on fire. If I come and say, hey, well, why is it on fire, or why would you let that happen on fire? That you're leading with the wrong energy. You're leading with something that I believe is not as empathetic, but that is the way many salespeople approach it, because they can apply that pressure to squeeze that dollar out of somebody who oftentimes doesn't have the dollar to squeeze out of. But when you're talking about somebody who can go in and build that relationship through trust and empathy, those allow for the guard to go down. So you can ask the questions that need to be asked to really understand what the root of the problem is. And the benefit of that is not only just being a good person, is that getting to the root of the problem avoids over engineering. Because the issue that they may have is only rooted by really kind of following them through and understanding at a fundamental level, not just inventory in general, not just their industry in general, but what is their specific problem, and then presenting a solution that they understand makes sense to them. Because a business owner is always going to understand the solution. They may not understand the technical aspects of how that solution is executed, but the solution should make sense to them because they are a master of their space.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So this next one is a fun one, because we already know that there's already people out there that really kind of dislike having conversations with them in the first place, and that's the customer facing chatbots, right?
Oh man, the bane of some people's existence.
I just want to talk to a person.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of businesses have deployed or are considering AI chatbots for things like customer support, ordering, FAQs, right? And there's some examples of this going well, and there's examples of this going very publicly wrong. There's been a meme that's been going around where somebody's on a chat with one of the McDonald's like support agents, and he's like, let's talk about the nuggets later, but give me like this, give me how to write this recursively. And the McDonald's chatbot goes ahead and just like writes it out for him. um you know when we stop to think about it, what is the business actually hoping to get from this, right? What are they hoping to get? Is it just cost savings? Is it just speed? Is it just coverage, right? A chatbot's not going to call out sick. A chatbot's not going to, doesn't need to take vacation time. It just continues to run. But what happens when it goes wrong? Have you built guardrails? Have you thought about making sure that this thing runs very specifically on Rails? Have you done any kind of fine tuning to make sure that any question that doesn't source anything that is specifically pertaining to the business is answered in a very certain way? Do you have a good system prompt? Do you have a good way of analyzing whether your prompt injection, right? And these are all things that you have to actually think about when you're having a customer facing chatbot, because there's people out there that look, their whole thing is going around to your chatbots and going, look how broken this is, and then they're going to post it.
I'll do you one better. Do you even need a chatbot?
Yeah.
When is that point where a chatbot is necessary, and what is the problem that a chatbot is solving? And it really kind of goes back to our original conversation. What is the problem that you have, and what are the potential solutions? Well, if you're getting a ton of people to your website, that is a very good problem to have as a business owner. If you can't handle that traffic because they have questions or inquiries about your business prior to taking that next step, and you can't handle the volume, well, then that's where you should probably start to consider a chatbot. Then the next question that just pops into my mind in general is, do you need an AI chatbot? Or can something like a Google Dialog flow with canned responses serve perfectly as a perfectly good option? Meaning, like, are the same questions and answers being asked 80-90% of the time? Basically, something that is uh, a step up from an FAQ section. Because the first thing will be probably having an FAQ section if you don't have one. Then having something where there's a lot more canned responses because of exactly some of the points that you just brought up. You don't want somebody to go and hack your chatbot and run up your API costs. You don't want them to break your chatbot and have it say things that it's not supposed to say. But once those have been exhausted and you're at that point where dynamic answers are important, now you bring some AI in there. But even then, the conversation is different. Guardrails have to be at the front of the line, and really engineering that properly to make sure that you're still providing a great experience. Yeah, it may mess up here and there, but it should be a better alternative to somebody not being able to speak to at all. And that's where providing the right solution to the right problem is paramount, because you can have two of the same businesses that offer the same product but have slightly different problems, and they should be met with slightly different solutions.
Especially in terms of just like prompt injection and things of that nature. And I agree with the points that you're making. Um, but there's no reason why in 2026 that you are running APIs directly to your inference without having some sort of gateway in the mix to highlight prompt injection, to highlight each turn, to highlight what how many tokens is this taking, what model am I hitting. You need to understand what's going on. This cannot be a black box for you. If you're going to have a front-facing chatbot, especially if you're running it through API, it cannot be a black box. I cannot implore that more. Observability and monitoring is paramount when you're doing this, so you understand what's happening, you understand where it's breaking, and then otherwise you're going to be viral on Twitter, and your chatbot's going to be there saying some wild stuff, and you're going to be going after your team because they'll have no answers. Nobody knows what's going on. They don't know what's going on. It's just you're just making an API call. This is just what's coming back. Well, why isn't there a middleman there observing what's going on, right? And if you're not thinking about this, you should definitely start thinking about it, because I think chatbots are the biggest thing that lead to is the biggest thing that's going to be exposed, especially to the outside. Now, internally, if your internal people are breaking your chatbots or for internal support or whatever, at least in that you have a bit of control. You know, stop it, Kevin. Stop breaking it. Right? But when it's external and you're giving this to the public to use, you have to take considerations to make sure that there's layers of control there, and that those are the important things. That is what is important, because right now nobody likes talking to chatbots. So okay, so if you're going to be talking to a chatbot, at what point does the chatbot escalate to a person? And this is something that you have to think about. This is something that Intercom does very well. They do help desk tickets. We'll get into that in just a second. They're 40 to 60% of level 1 help desk tickets are now solved by a chatbot. They can make that claim because they intelligently set up escalation. As soon as it looks like the person is getting frustrated, it escalates immediately to a person. That's the right way to do it, right? And then slowly but surely, people get accustomed to using the chatbot, and you hopefully, right, you get less escalations. And then you can actually, if anybody's worked in an MSP or IT field in general, you're just putting out fires all day long. And there's a bunch of reactive stuff that there's just not reactive. There's a bunch of proactive stuff you'd love to work on that you can't, because you're out there putting fires out all day long, like literally all day long. And if you could get those proactive stuffs going, then those fires wouldn't even occur, right? So, am I pro? It's a mixed bag, because what happens when you're not hiring level 1s anymore? What are you hiring level 2s? Where do these people start? How do you? Yeah.
I mean, when done well, the chatbot could be a great addition to your website. But what we're talking about is understanding the exact problem that a business has, because those 40 to 60% of tickets that it's handling before it escalates, you should know that these are the most common questions and answers that a person would handle that they don't have to handle. And a chatbot could do a really good job at not only answering that question, but answering it in a wide variety of ways that whoever developed the chatbot is taking into account. But then you also know that 40 to 60% that it doesn't do a great job at, this is where a person needs to step in, and the chatbot is designed to do just that before the person gets frustrated. There's a sentiment analysis that's kicked in, and this is after all the guardrails and all the security measures are taken into place, because now we're flowing in a place where the chatbot's not going down and doing anything wonky. And then there's a smooth transition into having a person take over right at that point where the end user is being frustrated. And the things you could measure that. This is not a mystery anymore when you're talking about building with AI. There's sentiment analysis. There's ways to find out that the customer is starting to get frustrated. So long before they throw an F-bomb in there, or they leave complete, which is the worst case scenario, there should be that transition. And yeah, Intercom, they're one of the companies that does it really well, but they've been in the game for so long. There's no surprise why they don't do it well. But that Intercom model should be adopted across all businesses. There's small businesses can still take advantage of that same model because it's not a mystery.
Yeah.
But the problem is first of all, not even considering that a chatbot is an option today. If you're not even considering that the chatbot is an option and you're having these pain points, this is the time to have that conversation. And then from there, what is the problem that we're having? Are you even measuring this traffic on your site to understand that this is a pain point? Because if you paid money to get fresh new people to your site, or you have existing customers who are already paying you, who are coming to the site as the first touch point, and you're not measuring it, then the conversation is not starting in the best possible way. Secondly, are you measuring these interactions so you can have some sort of context? Because this is the ways that the chatbot should be built if one is needed by gathering all this context and really trying to understand the problem that you are having as a business at a fundamental level. And then, well, like we talked about, is the value that you're getting from the chatbot greater than the expenses that are required to maintain it? And those expenses include the chatbot getting hacked, and all the things that can happen downstream from a bad chatbot experience. But if you're not even having that conversation at all or not even considering it, it's a tough situation.
But let's also say, let's say you're on the other side of the coin, right? Let's say you don't want the AI really being a front facing chatbot, but you want it to support the people handling the tickets. And there's a way you can do that too. And there's a way you can use the two of them in tandem, right? To the level 2 or level 3 tickets. Let's talk about, right? So if you are a business and you take in some sort of support ticket, you're going to have years of support tickets that you can draw from. Years of support tickets you could draw from, right? And in our last episode, we talked a little bit about RAG, and this is a good place to actually institute RAG, because now those tickets become data points, right? Now, what are you using? What are you using there? Well, you can leverage semantic search. A ticket comes in, the AI looks for tickets that came in that are similar, looks how those were resolved, and then makes a suggestion in the ticket itself for the tech. Hey, this happened such and such date. This is how this was resolved. Maybe this is the best thing that you can do. Okay. Now that sounds great, right? And I oversimplified that entire process, because what are you actually spending the most amount of time doing in that specific situation if you want to do it? You have to go through or find a way to clean that data. Now, if you have 10 years of ticketing information, you have thousands and thousands of tickets. What happens? You need to make sure that the tickets that you're embedding into your RAG system actually have useful information, or you're going to pollute that system and it's going to pull crap. So your biggest lift, the most amount of time you're going to spend there, is going to be cleaning that data up and making sure that any of that information that's actually getting embedded into your RAG system is useful. And I say that again because I have to implore you, because you have to use data that's useful, because otherwise, when semantic search happens, remember, semantic search brings up similar, not necessarily relevant. So if you have a bunch of tickets that are cited the same, but only 2 of the tickets actually have good conclusions, right? And the other 3 tickets are just completely ambiguous to how the problem was solved, all 5 of those tickets are going to get surfaced. And the AI is going to get to pick one. And it can be that completely ambiguous one that you don't want to do. Now, obviously, there can be re-ranking in there. You can have other layers of controls in there, but you don't want to this goes back to the point. You don't want to over-engineer for crap data. Garbage in, garbage out. This is the same thing. It's the same kind of game. But think about it, right? If you have text and your SLAs are indicating and dictating that these things need to be resolved in X amount of time, and you can leverage AI to pull past tickets that are similar in nature and provide those resolutions to your tech before they even see the problem. Look, the tech has to go through old tickets anyway, especially if it's a problem it's a multi-step issue, or it's something that they have to look up in general. They're going to look up old tickets anyway. So reducing the amount of time, and you're hastening the amount of time you're going to reach a resolution. So this is going to work for you. But these are just one of those situations where you have to understand where the work is, right? And now, why is this important? Well, in any situation, you're going to get tickets, you're going to get scheduling, you're going to do something that's kind of similar in nature, a little bit. And a lot of the problem becomes making sure that your data is clean, because it's most of the problem, right? And it ties all back to being introspective. It ties all back to, let me look at this process, right? Because if you're not collecting the right data and you're trying to get AI to make some sort of determination or autonomously decision make on crap data, you're not going to look. When I go in and I have a conversation with somebody, the first thing that I implore is you have to think about internally first. Don't think about what you want. Think about the process. How are we actually fixing this? Where is this actually broken? Because a lot of the times it's a symptom and it's not the problem itself. And what happens when you're sick? You attack If you attack the symptom and not the problem itself, you can stay sick.
And I think you touch a really good point because there's a lot of businesses out there that are starting to have these conversations. If you're not starting to have these conversations, we're encouraging you to start. But how do you make the decision on how to move forward with incorporating AI into your business? If it needs to be done directly or indirectly, this is how you start. Do we really understand the problem that we're experiencing, or are we just reactionary to knowing we need to do something but not knowing how to do it? This is how the process starts. What is the problem that we really have? And before you work towards a solution, really get a fundamental understanding of what that problem is. Who is the person that's actually experiencing the majority of the stress from that problem? Have you spoken to them? Do they have a seat at the tables for you to really understand what is their process to kind of break that down? Once you get all that information, then you can start to think about, okay, what does a solution look like? And in this day and age, there are ways, like in terms of the chatbot, there are ways to go and tackle that. And then once you get to that solution, you can really have a fundamental understanding on what the solution should look like. But you don't have to be an engineer to do that, because you are the expert in your business. You are the expert in the process. But are you asking the right questions? Do you really understand where you provide the most value? Because only from there can you determine, is the solution providing more value than it's costing. And if there's not alignment there, you got to go back to the drawing board. Something's off. Okay, now we get to the implementation part. Now you got to go roll up your sleeves and say, hey, how do we do this thing properly to make sure that we can provide a maximum value, that we keep everything on brand, that we provide a great experience to not only our team internally, but to our customers. The solutions are there, and there's a lot of different options, but it starts with understanding that problem and then being able to convey that to your team internally. Or if somebody's giving you a call, they're not in the driver's seat. You're in the driver's seat because you are the expert in your space, but you're trying to find alignment between your problem and the right solution for your business. We're not in the age anymore where you got to just buy some software and you use 30% of the services and the other 70% is not applicable, but you're still paying for it. We're in that day and age where you can get exactly what you need for your business. And this is kind of how it looks like to get there.
And I wanted to thank you guys for tuning in for episode 9. It's been a great episode, and I think moving forward we're going to be attacking specific issues in the workplace, and we'll be talking about the hurdles, the compromises, right, the trade offs that you have to make, the things that you have to think about. And I think this is going to be very worthwhile, and it's going to be hopefully an entertaining listen, right? And if you're out there and you're watching this and you're like, I have a business problem that I want tackled, comment. Go ahead.
You beat me to it, Peter. I was just gonna say, you know what? Let's
Yeah.
let's throw the ideas in there and let's see if we can come up with a solution. That's actually a pretty cool approach. Not planned, by the way, but yeah, I think that'll be interesting. If you have a business problem, throw it in the comments, and who knows? Maybe the next episode will be specifically about that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. You have a great one, and I'll see you guys next week.
Later.